Happy Walden's Day, everybody. It's Mike here at Game From Scratch, and assuming you're watching this as I publish it, it made sense to put it live on a Wednesday because we are talking today about the ODIN programming language. If you do not know, ODIN or Wotan or Thor's dad, that's the reason why we have the word Wednesday. And today we're talking about the ODIN language, so hey, let's just jump in. Now on this channel in the past, I've been trying to feature game development relative but slightly alternative programming language. I haven't done one in a while, but in the past we covered languages such as Ren, Gravity, Beef, Skip, Check-C, Zig, Rust, Go, and Nim. And today we are adding ODIN to that mix. Now, I'm not going to pretend for more than a second that I have any competency in ODIN. I've basically looked at it. I've played around a bit with it in code. It's fairly simple to get started with. The tooling is a little bit on the limited side. I couldn't get code completion working, for example, but I am no expert in this language. So I'm not even going to pretend to be able to tell you what makes this language good or bad versus other languages. This is more pointing you towards the fact that ODIN exists and letting you draw your own conclusions from that. Now, this is a data-oriented language. It is somewhere in between and seemingly inspired by the C programming language and the Pascal programming language. If you like the idea of those two getting together and, well, that is what ODIN is all about. It is also data-oriented, not object-oriented. So if you do not want an OO language, well, ODIN is here for you. At the same time, it also has no memory management of any kind. There are allocators in there for handling memory management, but you have explicit control over memory layout. And that is, again, one of those things in the world of game development that you might find quite useful. Here you can see some examples of ODIN in action. Some of the nice things with ODIN, it's very much got array level support, but it's also got some of the things that you start to really miss when you're dealing with C, such as dynamic arrays. So here you can see an array programming example. You do have swizzling built in. There is a matrix type out of the box, which is also very nice. You also have things like multiple return types, which is pretty handy. Here is a simple hello example. Where you're going to find that ODIN really shines, though, is when it comes to game development. There are a number of implementations of common APIs and frameworks out of the box. You can tell this is focused towards that kind of development. So that is kind of the ODIN overview. If you want to learn more about ODIN, you can check it out at odin-lang.org. Now, one of the nice things about ODIN is the fact that it's actually been pretty battle tested. There is a program out there called EmberGen from Django Effects. These guys wrote the entire thing using the ODIN language. And when you have shipped software, and this is being used by quite a few companies, as we'll see in a second, it's actually very cool software. I've covered it on the channel before. You should check it out. Well, it was written using the ODIN language, so you know that this can be used to create production quality software, something a lot of these more experimental languages don't have going for them. In terms of their design principles, they're all about simplicity. It is designed for readability, scalability, orthogonality of concepts. Simplicity is complicated to get right. Clear is always better than clever. And I got to agree with that completely. I hate looking at code and going, oh, that's brilliant, because it took me 3.5 minutes to parse what it was all about. It's also high performance oriented, so you have low level control over memory layout, memory management, and custom allocators, and so much more. So again, memory management is kind of one of those areas where a lot of programming languages fall on their face when it comes to performance, or you really have to work around the memory manager to get things work right. This one has full control over it. Plus you have packing of how structures and such are organized in memory. Another thing that modern graphics hardware really kind of likes. At the same time, built for modern systems, so you have sequence of arrays, data types, array programming, and other features like that. And again, it's fun to use. Now that one obviously is a little bit on the subjective side, but hey, I'll give it to them. So as I mentioned earlier on, ODIN is being used in production, and EmberGen is actually being used at a number of places you've probably heard of, such as, Bethesda or Weta, or I guess that's Unity, Warner Brothers, Gearbox, you name it. This software is definitely successful software. It is really impressive, by the way. If you have never checked out EmberGen, I recommend doing so. But this program was actually written using ODIN, which I gotta say, for the Django Effects team, that was a bold decision. But that is definitely a feather in the cap for the ODIN language. And then I mentioned earlier on that there are bindings for a number of popular APIs and frameworks when it comes to the world of game development. So when it comes to graphics APIs, they actually have bindings for pretty much everything. OpenGL, Vulkan, DirectX 3D11, DirectX 3D12, Metal, WebGL 1 and 2. And then on top of that, a number of common frameworks are part of the vendor library, making them very easy to work with. I'll show you this in action a little bit later on. But we got SDL2, GLFW, RayLib, Micro UI, Mini Audio, and more. All have bindings available. So that is a nice nice thing as well. So earlier on, I mentioned Django FX Embergen written using the ODIN language, which is quite cool. Now, the question mark of this would be, well, why would I want to use the ODIN language? So you can see some of the details behind this guy. By the way, it is under the BSD3 open source license. But here is your big question. What does ODIN offer that other programming languages don't? Now, again, I have not used this language in any major capacity. I've played around with it, and that's about it. So I can't speak to this. But some of their high-level features are things like UTF-8 support, custom allocators, context system for allocations, logging and thread data, built-in types and procedures take advantage of context system, new type and make use context allocators, dynamic arrays and hash maps. Now, dynamic arrays are one of the biggies. That's one of those things, again, when I'm dealing with something like C, I immediately hate not having dynamic arrays. It's just one of those things that I wish they would add to the language. And they may have with the new version of C, 99++. I haven't really been following the C language development of the newer stuff lately. Again, you got array programming out of the box. There is a matrix type, by the way. So if you're doing, multidimensional matrix math, it is well supported. Again, you've got things like swizzling, which is, again, useful for dealing things like coordinates or RGB values, etc. Explicit procedure overloading, introspection on all types. There is a reflex system built in here. You got high-level control over memory layout, endianness, field offsets, alignment, and data sizes. So again, memory management and memory layout are the two big features for ODIN for sure. There is a decent package system. There is no bad preprocessor, which, again, that's one of those things with C and C++. The preprocessor is, that's a thing. You got type inference. You can see in action there. Using, which is like Pascal's width on steroids. Multiple return values is another feature that once you get used to it is nice to have. There's no need for procedural prototypes. Defer statement until the end of scope, like dscope exit. You can do nested procedures and types, tagged unions and untagged unions, ranged for loops, and so on and so forth. In terms of, is this an object-oriented language? No, it's not, but subtype polymorphism is possible through the use of using, but does not offer methods specifically. And this is one of those things, as soon as something's not object-oriented, when people get their hands on it, they immediately try to make it object-oriented. It's just the nature of programmers, I think. So you can get more details about the FAQs on here. One of the things that I really like, this is a language feature I think has probably caused more harm than not, is the lack of operator overloading. Now, operator overloading can make some really clever looking code, but it can also hide a lot of implementation details and bugs from you. So people have their own opinion on this, but I can surely understand this decision that they've made. And on it goes. You can find out more values about it as you go through here. Also, you can get an overview of the language here, all of the various different aspects that go together to make it. It's a relatively straightforward language. Again, if you've used C and you've used Pascal, you're going to be immediately comfortable. The declaration syntax is very Pascal-y in the way that it works. It is also made to bind nicely with C-based libraries, so interop should be a pleasant enough experience. You've got array programming, dynamic arrays, so on. So that there, ladies and gentlemen, is a very high-level view of ODIN. Also, you do have maps, which are another very useful language feature. And yeah, that is ODIN at a top level. Obviously, I will link to all the relevant documentation. So if you're interested in what you've seen and you want to dig in a bit more, you can do so. What I do like, again, is the fact that they have all of these game-oriented frameworks and APIs already done for you. So if you want to dig into game development, the stuff is there. Now, where I find it kind of falls a little bit flat, the Getting Started guide is a little bit iffy. I had trouble getting binary libs to link on an M1 Mac. Might be a user error on my side, might be an implementation problem from them. And I never could actually get IntelliSense to work with any code editor, and I'm basically a drooling idiot if I don't have IntelliSense in my code editor, especially when I'm trying to figure something out. So as I mentioned earlier on, this is an open source project. It is under the BSD3 license. I will link this down below. One of the things you probably want to check out if you come on over here is the vendor section. So these are basically all of the bindings that come with it out of the box. You can also check out their core lib stuff here. So these are the libraries that come with it. So you have string libraries, time libraries, IO, crypto, that's crypto as in encryption, crypto, not crypto as in NFTs. But you come into the vendor section, here's where you will find a variety of different bindings out there. And again, a lot of it's sort of like a who's who of game frameworks and such to work with, which is definitely quite nice. And for example, if you come into the RayLib examples here, you can see a bit of an overview of what RayLib's all about. Here you can see a RayLib example. You're importing it as RL, and then it's just basically calling things through it. Otherwise, you should be able to adapt the code no problem. There's no linking involved here. Basically, you just have to, for the vendor stuff, import it as a vendor colon library like so, and it is there and ready to go for you. So you should be able to use the C documentation, no problem at all. Here you can actually see how a C binding is generated for a C++ library, and it's mostly just a matter of, you know, you're doing a C calling convention here, so sort of like extern C in C++. You're mapping things out, and you're basically remapping each of the function calls into a ODIN-friendly format. So it's not exactly rocket surgery to bind a C library like you see right in action right here. And the nice thing, once again, is they have a decent number of them from the game development world already set up. And there does seem to be a focus with the ODIN language on, you know, a game development type ecosystem. So ladies and gentlemen, that is the ODIN programming language. Again, the best way I can describe it is if C and Pascal had a baby and they focused on arrays and memory management, that there, ladies and gentlemen, in a nutshell, is ODIN. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you have other recommendations for this series. And yeah, I'll see what I can do about covering them. That's it. ODIN, let me know what you think. Talk to you all later, and happy Wednesday. Goodbye.